Welcome everybody to today's service. We have a very, very special service today. It is the BWA Memorial Service and the Lady Takeko Kujo Kisaragi Memorial Service. Today we also will be doing a kieshiki or affirmation ceremony for one of our MAs. We have 3 MAs that will be receiving their BCA certification. Our officiant today is Reverend Hōkai Smitty Smith, and co-officiating is Chaplain Noriko Kawai. I am your chairperson, Laverne Imori. We will be accompanied on the organ by our musical accompanist, Ann Ong. And so because we have a pretty packed service today, we'll get right into it with our fruit and flower offering that is being presented by the Dharma School pre-K and 3rd grade class. Please join us in the chanting of the Sambujo, which can be found in the BTSD service book on page 21, and which will be led by Reverend Smith.
San Ge
Reverend Smith will now do the Hyōbyakumon, intention of the service, and that will be followed by the Sangha, led by Reverend Smith, chanting the Jusei-ge, which can be found on page 35.
We gather today, embraced by the wisdom and compassion that is Amida Buddha, to observe the annual memorial for members of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego's Buddhist Women's Association, who have crossed over to the other shore. This is a time to remember and honor all those BWA members who have passed away before us, and to recognize their continued influence in our lives. We also honor and remember Lady Takeko Kujo, who founded the Buddhist Women's Association within Jodo Shinshu Honganji-ha. Her legacy is one of redefining women's roles within our temples, and she aspired to relieve the suffering of all people. Lady Kujo was a devout Nembutsu follower, an avid listener to of the Dharma, and an active participant in service to her community. The same may be said of the many BWA members who have followed her example and truly lived the Dharma every day. In gratitude for our lives having been enriched by Lady Kujo and all the deceased BWA members, we place our palms together in Gassho and recite the name of the Buddha of infinite light. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, 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 Namanda. Please join me in chanting Jusei-ge, found on page 35. Gagon chosegan hishimu jodo shigan fumanzok sefujo shogak gao muryoko huidai seshu husai shobingu sefujo shogak gashijo bundo myosho chojipo kukyo mishomon sefujo shogak ryoku jinshonen joeshu bongyo shigumu Shotenin Shi Jinriki and Daiko Husho Musaido Shoujo San Kumyo Kosai Shuyakunan Kaihichi Egen Meshi Konmo An Hesoku Shoakudo Tsudanzen Shumon Kosojo Manzok Ioro Jipo Nichigan Shujuki Tenko Onpugen Ishukai Hozo Kosekudoku Ho Jodai Shuchu Seppo Shishiku Kuyo Isai Bud Gusoku Shutoku Hon Gane Shinjo Man Toku Isan Gai O Nyobun Mugechi Tsudan Mihu Sho Gangaku Erik Toshi Saisho Son Shiganya Koka Daisen Okando Koku Shotenin Touchin Myoke Namandabu Namandabu Shikudoku Byodo Seisai Dohon Daishin Ojo Anrako. Namandab, 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 namandab.
Now, if you'll join me in reading our pledge, it is on a separate sheet of paper in the back of the service book. And this is a pledge that was written by our current Gomonshu Otani Koju. Breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha, not becoming lost in my greed and anger and ignorance. I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Now we will have the reading of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego BWA memorial names. We'll have 4 readers who are members, longtime members of the San Diego's Buddhist Women's Association. Susan Yonekura, Margot Spears, Ann Yamamoto, and Aki Toyama. I'll read the names of the 3 people whose names we did not include in last year's memorial service. The first is Agnes Benson. Her family member is Sachiko Kohatsu. Mrs. Benson passed away August 8th, 1922. Alice Asako Morinaka. Family member is Mr. Ron Morinaka. And Mrs. Morinaka passed away on April 10th, 1922. Yukie Terada, Mrs. Noriko Sasaki. Mrs. Terada passed away on December 30th, 1921. And now I'd like to invite the BWA members to read the names of the past BWA members.
Yasu Akiyama, Mrs. Chieko Sugiyama. Momoyo Amano, Mrs. Mikie Honda. Nobuko Amano, Mrs. Tracy Amano Mitchell. Mary Amemiya, Mrs. Gail Amemiya. Shin Araumi, Azuma family. Tora Azuma, Azuma family. Agnes Benson, Sachiko Kohatsu. Oto Date, Mrs. Jill Uda. Kurume Doi, Mr. Larry Yamada. Kimie Fukamizu, Mrs. Rochelle Carroll. Iwa Furuya, Mr. George Furuya Jr. Takaya Furuya, Mr. George Furuya Jr. Leora Hamada, Mr. Gary Hamada. Mitsue Hanano, Mrs. Carolyn Skinner. Fuji Hashiguchi, Hashiguchi family. Kura Hataue, Mr. Craig Inoue. Mio Hill, Mr. Ed Hill. Kazue Himaka, Mr. Michio Himaka. Setsuko Himaka, Mrs. Lynn Fujigami. Fumino Honda, Mrs. Mikie Honda. Yuku Hosaka, Mrs. June Hosaka. Mine Imai, Mrs. Fumiko Ohara. Matsue Ishino, Mrs. Hiroko Ishino. Sadako Ishizu, Mrs. Setsuko Toyama. Tamiko Iwashita, Mr. and Mrs. Setsuo Iwashita. Yoshiko Iwataki, Carol and Patricia Iwataki. A. Kamimura, Mrs. Midori Kamimura. Ayako Kaminaka, Mr. Wayne Kaminaka. Yoshiko Kashima, Mrs. Jeannie Kashima. Ito Kawamoto, Mr. David Kawamoto.
I apologize. I forgot to invite family members to come up and do oshoko, burning of incense, and gasho during the readings of the names. So you're welcome to come up and pay your respects.
Sakayo Kawamoto, Mrs. Mitsuko Kawamoto. Kyo Kawasaki, Mr. and Mrs. Tracy Kawasaki. Misao Kawasaki, Mr. Ted Kawasaki. Toshiko Kawasaki, Mr. Ted Kawasaki. Yoshiko Kawato, Mrs. Nancy Nakatani. Chieko Kida, Mrs. Katsumi Kida. Hatsue Kimura, Mrs. Holly Heidinger. Ruth Kiono, Mr. Norman Kiono. Michiko Koba, Mrs. Ann Ong. Shizua Koba, Mrs. Ann Ong. Yukino Kodama, Mr. Norman Kiono. Matsu Kusaka family. Tamiko Mamiya, Mr. David Kawamoto. Yuki Masumoto, Mrs. Chioko Masumoto. Dorothy Matsumoto, Mr. Troy Matsumoto. Tamio Mayumi, Mrs. Mitsuko Kawamoto. Giano Moribe, Mr. Lee Moribe. Alice Asako Morinaka, Mr. Ron Morinaka. Chieko Morinama, Mrs. Madeline Cloxton. Haruko Muruoka, Mr. Roy Muruoka. Ritsu Nabeta, Mrs. Joyce Teague. Fuji Nakamura, Mrs. Joe Uda. Hamako Nakamura, Mrs. Yukiko Sugiyama. Kiyoshi Nakamura, Mr. and Mrs. Jake Nakamura. Pauline Nakamura, Mrs. Joe Uda. Rue Nemoto, Mrs. Kathy Ferguson. Nobue Nishi, Mrs. Akiko Matsumoto. Masa Nishinaga, Mrs. Mani Ryan. Kayako Ochi, Mrs. Emmy Ochi. Kyoko Ochi, Mrs. Holly Heidinger.
Hisaya Ogawa, Mr. Stephen Yagade. Kisaya Ohara, Mrs. Ann Ohara. Mitsu Ohara, Mrs. Fumiko Ohara. Mitose Okuma family. Kyoko Omori, Mrs. Shirley Omori. Wasa Osaki, Tomiyama family. Tomio Ota, Mr. and Mrs. Ken Ota. Motono Oto, Mrs. Hatsumi Oto. Ayako Otsuji, Mr. Dennis Otsuji. Fujie Oya, Miss Kei Ochi. Shizue Saito, Miss Georgiana Uda. Komeno Sakamoto, Mrs. Tracy Amano Mitchell. Kyoko Santo Higashi, Mrs. Kiku Graber. Sachiko Santo Higashi, Mrs. Akie Tomiyama. Yoshiko Shigehara, Mr. Wilbur Shigehara. Ami Shimizu, Mr. Gordon Shimizu. Shizuko Shimizu, Mr. Gordon Shimizu. Yoshiko Sueoshi, Mrs. Annie Y. Christina. Mary Suenaga family. Aiko Tachiki family. Kimie Tachiki family. Tetsu Tachiki family. Toshiko Takagi, Mrs. Alice Aoyama. Fusano Takahashi Suenaga family. Kotono Takahashi, Mrs. Ruth Voorhees. Helen Kikuko Takashima, Mr. Ron Takashima. Tsume Takashima, Mr. Wilbur Takashima. Yoshiko Takashima, Mr. Wilbur Takashima. Tsuruye Tanaka, Mrs. Chioko Masumoto.
Mary Sayoko Tomiyama family. Suna Torio, Mrs. Betty Torio. Harue Tsuneyoshi, Miss Miki Tsuneyoshi. Sada Tsuneyoshi, Mrs. Angie Tsuneyoshi. Peggy Tsurudome, Mrs. Chioko Masumoto. Masa Watanabe, Mrs. Diane Yamada. Sen Watanabe, Mr. Gary Hamada. Yoshiko Watanabe, Mrs. Diane Watanabe. I'm sorry, Yamada. Yukie Yagade, Mr. Stephen Yagade. Chieko Yagi, Miss Christine Driscoll. Mary Yagura, Mr. Ron Yagura. Naoe Yagura, Mr. Ron Yagura. Kakue Yamada, Yamada family. Rosie Yamada, Yamada family. Susie Yamada, Mr. Burt Masumoto. Katsuko Yamaguchi, Mrs. Donna McDonald. Mary Yamaguchi, Mrs. Donna McDonald. Shizue Yamamoto, Yamamoto family. Matsu Yamanishi, Mrs. Miyoko Yamanishi. Sawa Yamanishi, Mrs. Miyoko Yamanishi. Tetsu Yamasaki, Mrs. Angie Tsuneyoshi. Tome Yamashita, Mr. and Mrs. Trace Kawasaki. Shizuko Yanagihara, Mrs. Sumi Yanagihara. Betty Yano, Ms. Madeline Clogston. Chio Yano, Ms. Madeline Clogston. Ryu Yonekura, Mr. Ron Takashima. Toyoko Yonekura, Ms. Susan Yonekura. Yoshie Yonekura, Mr. Ron Takashima. Matsue Yoshida, Mrs. Betty Torio.
Please join me in Gassho as we again express our gratitude to the service that these past BWA members offered to this temple. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. And now Reverend Smith will introduce our very special guest speaker for the Dharma School message.
Hi, everybody. Today, we welcome Reverend Marvin Harada, the Bishop of Buddhist Churches of America, as our guest speaker. Reverend Harada became bishop in April of 2020, around the same time that we were all experiencing COVID lockdowns and endless Zoom sessions. So perhaps it's fitting that Reverend Harada joins us today via Zoom as he continues to recover from a COVID infection. Reverend Marv grew up on his family's farm in eastern Oregon, where they raised onions, potatoes, sugar beets, corn, and grain. Maybe some other things too, but that's what I recall. And his family attended the local Shin Buddhist temple, much like many of you are here today. As a youngster, he wasn't a serious student of the Dharma, but he more than made up for that by earning a BA degree from the University of Oregon in Religious Studies, a Master of Arts in Buddhist Studies from the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and a Master of Arts in Shin Buddhist Studies from the Rikoku University in Japan. And prior to becoming Bishop of BCA, Reverend Harada was a resident minister at the Orange County Buddhist Church for 33 years. And many of us in Southern District who have had the opportunity over that period to meet his good Dharma buddy, Freddie the Frog, who often helps with Dharma talks and lessons for the young and old alike. Well, I don't think Freddie will be visiting us today, but hopefully he'll rejoin Reverend Harada in the not too distant future and share the Dharma with all of us once again. In the meantime, thank you, Reverend Harada, for being here virtually with us today.
Thank you very much, Reverend Smitty. First of all, let me do a little quick sound check. Can everyone see and hear okay? Okay, very good. I'm going to share my screen. I have a few spiritual eye, an eye that can see, not like a Superman eye, but an eye that enables one to see oneself. Ourself is the hardest thing to see. We cannot see ourselves. Even if it takes a mirror for us to physically see ourselves, it's harder to see our inner self. Let me share one quick story about how hard it is to see ourselves. One day, I was at the temple, and I was talking outside in front after the service. One of our members came up to me, put his arm around me, said, "Sensei, I need to talk to you privately." And he pulled me way off to the side. I thought, maybe he wants to be counseled about something. So he pulled me way off to the side of the window where no one could see, and he said, "Sensei, your zipper is down." Huh? I was out there talking in front of all these people. My zipper's wide open. Something so close to you, but you can't see. How much more so our inner self? So hard to see. The other spiritual power of a Buddha is spiritual ear to hear. Spiritual ear to hear. We have ears, but can we really hear? We have to listen to the Dharma. From the time we're very young, to the time we're senior citizens. Then our spiritual ear is nurtured, and we will begin to hear Namo Buddhadharma. You know, we think that we say Namo Buddhadharma, but in time we come to hear it, not only through our ears, but through our hearts. So through Buddhism, we receive spiritual power or inner strength. Inner strength. It's more important to have inner strength than physical strength, like the Hulk or Superman. Inner strength helps you in school. Inner strength helps you in sports. Inner strength helps you if you're a musician. Inner strength helps you with all of your life, throughout all of your life. And if you learn Buddhism now when you're young, and you develop that inner strength when you're young, all the more better you will be able to deal with life as you get older. That is the importance of Buddhism. That is how the Nembutsu, Namo-Buddhadharma, gives us an inner strength in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop Harada, for that wonderful message about the powers of Buddha. And now we are going to turn to page 140 in our service books. We're going to sing Seiya, but I'd like to just read the translation very quickly. Seiya is sung in Japanese. Through the mystery of the nightly skies, the brilliant lit stars shine to fill my heart with peace and joy. The many Buddhas, more than the sands that are found on the banks of the Ganges River, watching over us night and day, brings joy and peace to my heart. So please, how about we'll stand. This is in tribute to Lady Takeko Kujo, who wrote the words to this song. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. And now we will move on to the Kishki affirmation ceremony. You may be seated. And the MA certification, and that will be conducted by Bishop Harada and assisted by Reverend Smith.
Yes, if I could ask Sharon Sasaki to step forward. Okay. Oh. Okay, Sharon, if you could face, I guess you could face me. Oh, I say, oh, you have to face the screen, right? Okay. Okay. You gasho, and bow. I now present the Buddhist name, Shaku Kosen. Say, can you say in gasho, please? I now present the Buddhist name, Shaku Kosen, which means 1,000 lives, to Sharon Sasaki. Namu Kie Butsu, Namu Kie Ho, Namu Kie So. Okay. I'd like to briefly explain your Buddhist name, Sharon. When the light of the Dharma illuminates your heart and mind, the light from your heart will illuminate another person's heart and mind until 1,000 hearts and minds are illuminated. That is the meaning of whole sin, 1,000 lights. Now, please, Gasho, repeat after me. Please repeat after me the following. Through this affirmation ceremony, I shall endeavor to live a life guided by the name of Butsu teaching. From this day forward, I put my faith in Buddha. I put my faith in Dharma. I put my faith in Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu. Congratulations. certified well over 150 ministers' assistants, many who have gone on to becoming full-fledged kaitoshi. Initially, we looked at the program as a way to assist ministers due to the shortage of ministers, but as the program developed, we found that it was a wonderful way to expand our ministry, to share the teachings in new ways, and it was a great way to nurture and develop dedicated ministry followers. Today, we certify Arturo Rubio, Sharon Sasaki, and Yukari Williams. In becoming certified, we assume greater responsibilities as a minister's assistant. The greatest responsibility that you assume is to dedicate yourself to continue to listen to and study the teaching. I hope that you will take advantage of every opportunity to listen to a lecture or Dharma talk and to continue to learn in the future. The more you learn, the more depth and knowledge you'll be able to share with your Sangha. Now I'd like to have you recite after me the famous passage from the Ojo Rai song, written by Zen Dashi, the passage on Jishin Kyoho Nishi. So please gasho and repeat after me, one phrase at a time. To realize Shinji oneself and to guide others to Shinji is among difficult things, yet even more difficult. To awaken beings everywhere to great compassion service, if we could have a picture taken for the Buddhadharma. Okay.
Thank you so very much. That was beautiful, and we are ever so grateful to have 3 brand new certified minister's assistants. We already have one, and that is Mr. Bill Teague. So I think the Buddhist Temple of San Diego is very, very fortunate to have these 3 very dedicated individuals to help us keep the Dharma at Buddhist Temple of San Diego. Now I'd like to introduce our BTSD Most Honorable President, Luann Lee, to do words of appreciation.
Wow, thank you. Honorable. We have to give that to Bishop Harada and everyone else involved with this certification. And thank you. It's so nice to see so many of you here today at the BWA Memorial Service, Lady Takeko Kujo Memorial Service, in conjunction with the BCA certification presentation. On behalf of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Bishop Harada, for his guidance in taking time out of his extra busy schedule to prepare his Dharma messages and to present the BCA certification to 3 of our minister assistants. Even though he was down with COVID, not feeling 100%, he continued on with our services and on the certifications. We really appreciate that. We want you to rest up, though, if you can. And we hope you can visit us in person sometime soon. Also, I wanted to thank Michael Endo, assistant to the bishop, and to Reverend Imori for their help with and support in making this certification possible. There was a lot of forms to fill out and certificates to send, and also thank you to Reverend Marv's bishop's wife for sending the robes and the okesas for us to have today. Also, congratulations to Arturo, Sharon, and Yukari for receiving their certifications today, and also, as mentioned, Bill Teague for becoming certified in 2021. On behalf of the Scholarship Committee and the Board of Directors, we want to announce that we will be presenting at a luncheon for them today a check for $1,500 each to defray the cost of their trip to Japan, in addition to the other check that they had received for $2,000. So we hope that will help you in your trip and as they visit all the historical sites in May. Also, I want to thank Reverend Hōkai Smitty Smith for officiating today's service, and to Reverend Laverne and Imori for chairing this morning. Also to Noriko Kawai for assisting. And to all the MAs that helped to prepare for the service. Special thanks to Anne for playing the organ, and the technical team for taking care of all the Zoom and live stream, many things going on at one time. We want to thank also, as always, the Sangha, you, for always your generous donations and for attending today's service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luann. There is much to be grateful for. Do we have any announcements this morning?
Sorry, I should have mentioned it when I was here. The Historical Society of San Diego, I just wanted to mention that they're going to have a day of remembrance on February 25th. It's a Saturday at 1 o'clock via Zoom. So we will be honoring Dr. Irons, and also we will have a speaker, and we know her well, is Jamie Brown, Bill and Joyce's daughter. She will be speaking via Zoom. So we hope you can attend. There's a flyer in the back, and there's a lot more to say, but I'll just keep it at that, okay? So please take a flyer on the way out.
I also want to announce that next week Sunday is going to be Scout Sunday. And thank you to Ricky Cheeks and all the scouting, those involved in scouting for putting that program together. So I hope that you'll be able to attend. It is also, the BCA National Council meetings are also happening, and there will be a service, an Eitaikyo service on Sunday morning at 10. So I believe that will be Zoomed. BCA website. Okay, go to the BCA website. Any other announcements? Okay, otherwise we will excuse the Dharma School students to come up, go ahead, come up and do your oshoko, and then you will be dismissed to your, I don't know if it's an activity or a class this morning. And thank you again to the pre-K to third grade class for doing the fruit and floral offering. Thank you, Dharma School students. Thank you, teachers. And thank you, parents. Special thank you to our Dharma School Superintendent, Nancy Martinez. All right, if you will now turn to page 96, Reverend Smitty will lead us in the chanting of the Vandana and Tisarana, and please start, join her in the very beginning of the chant, where it says leader.
Thank you, Reverend Laverne. Yes, I'd like everybody to chant all parts together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kie Butsu, Namo Kie Ho, Namo Kie So. Namo Mirabuts, Namo Mirabuts, Namanda, 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 Namanda.
And now Reverend Smith will reintroduce our guest speaker for the BWA and Lady Kujo Memorial Dharma Message.
I'd like to briefly reintroduce Reverend Harada before he shares his Dharma message with us. And as you know, Reverend Harada, throughout his time with BCA, his time as a minister, has worn very many hats. Of course, his biggest hat that he's wearing right now is the bishop hat. But prior to this, he also wore the co-director of BCA's Center for Buddhist Education hat. And in that role, Reverend Marv also wore yet another hat, and that one was of chef at the Jodo Shinshu Center. From my early visits to the JSC to this past summer's Kyoshi Kyoshu training session, I've had the pleasure of enjoying Chef Harada's wonderfully flavorful Japanese-style curry, a dish I never grow tired of. Reverend Harada's curry is much like his Dharma messages. You can experience them again and again, and each time you discover something truly special and wonderful. So thank you, Reverend Marv, for sharing Dharma with us today.
Thank you very much, Smitty. Just double check again, the sound and picture is okay. Is the sound okay? Okay, very good, very good. Thank you very much. I'm so thrilled that Reverend Smitty likes my cooking. It's always fun to cook at the events at the JSC. So I'd like to continue on with my PowerPoint and reflections now on our BWA Memorial and Lady Takeko Kujo Memorial. So this is Lady Takeko Kujo, and this is a recent book that was published about her and some of her writings. It's titled Leaves of My Heart. I believe it's available through the BCA bookstore. So Lady Takeko Kujo lived from 1887 to 1928. She was the second daughter of Myo Shoni, a hard name to say, Myo Shoni, who was the 21st Nonshu of our Hōkai. Now, Myo Shoni was significant in that he sent the first ministers to the United States during his term. And Lady Takeko Kujo is known for starting the BWA, as it was mentioned, the Buddhist Women's Association, among some other greater achievements in her life. She helped to establish a school for girls that would become the Kyoto Women's University. Our Reverend Mutsumi Wandra from OCBC is the graduate of Kyoto Women's University. And she helped to establish, Lady Takeko Kujo helped to establish a food clinic in Tokyo that would later become the Asoka Hospital. So from the book that I just showed, the cover, The Leaves of My Heart, this is just a short excerpt. It's titled To Bow from the Heart. To bow. So we offer incense at our services, we come in front of the altar and we bow. But here she talks about to bow from the heart, from deep inside. And this short passage I'd like to share with all of you to reflect on today. When we stand in the presence of the infinite, whether it be in the form of a mountain or the sun in the heavens above, nothing can be hidden in the heart that bows with sincerity. Whatever be the object of reverence, there is utter joy when one has the inspiration to kneel down before it and offer up one's entire being. I love this passage. To kneel down before it and offer up one's entire being. This is Mount Fuji, such a picturesque mountain. This could be an object of reverence that we stand before, kneel down, and bow to. Beautiful, beautiful Mount Fuji. I'd like to share an experience by a Buddhist minister in Japan. His name is Reverend Harada. And his experience of flying over Mount Fuji. Now, I read this in a book many years ago, maybe 30, 40 years ago. And Reverend Takada was not a Jodo-Shinshu minister, but he was a popular Buddhist minister, wrote books. And he always loved the view of Mount Fuji, so majestic. And one day, an acquaintance invited him to go for a plane ride in a small airplane. And he said, would you like to see Mount Fuji from above? Oh, what a wonderful opportunity for him to come about. So he accepted the offer and went on this small plane and flew over Mount Fuji. But Reverend Takada said, gee, I was kind of disappointed in the view of Mount Fuji from above. He said, it kind of looked like the back of a horse or something like that. And he was a little bit disappointed by the view of Mount Fuji from above. And then, because of maybe his Buddhist insight, he realized Mount Fuji is not made to be looked at from above. Mount Fuji should be looked at from the ground level, from the foothills, looking up at Mount Fuji. This is how Mount Fuji should be seen. And then Reverend Takada, because of his sort of Buddhist background, then reflected another step further. And he said, life is like that too. When I stand above and I look down on people, the world is not very pretty. If I stand up here and I'm so arrogant and I look down at others, the world is not very pretty. But if I stand at the very bottom and look up at all things in the world, everything is beautiful and majestic like Mount Fuji. Life is meant to be seen from the foothills. Life is meant to be seen from the standpoint of humbleness and humility, which is Shin Buddhism. Look at this view of the ocean. Haven't we all felt this at some point in our time? In our lives, you go to the ocean, it's so vast and so deep. It's just very awe-inspiring. We feel so small. We feel so small in comparison to this vast ocean. But yet, we are connected. We feel a connection with the ocean. I love to just stand and admire the ocean from the shore. In the same way, looking up at Mount Fuji. We are humble. We are made small in comparison to the vastness of the ocean. To stand before the ocean is inspiring. The ocean is so vast and deep. We feel so small and humble, but yet connected to the great and vast ocean, like standing before a majestic mountain. Look, taking that excerpt from Lady Takeko Kujo, whatever the object of reverence, there is utter joy when one has the inspiration to kneel down before it and offer up one's entire being. Isn't that what we do every Sunday? When we come to the temple and we stand in front of the altar, we put our hands together in gasho, and we bow. So to bow before the statue of Amida Buddha is to bow to what it represents, what it symbolizes. Immeasurable life and immeasurable life, or great wisdom and great compassion, which are the contents of enlightenment. That's what we are bowing to when we bow in front of the altar. I'd like to share an experience I had many years ago with a Soccer teams is the junior high school age, as you know, who bowed from the heart. So on that particular day at Orange County, we were having we call it Old Soji, the general cleanup, in which everyone was there cleaning everywhere at the temple, the yard, the kitchen, the social hall. And I was in the Hondo, and this young Sami King girl came rushing into the Hondo. And by the time she got to me, she broke down in tears. So I said, gee, what happened? I pulled her to the side room. She calmed herself down, and I asked her, what's wrong? And she said, oh, I just heard that my grandpa in Hawaii just passed away. And I wanted to come into the Hondo to do Oshoko for my grandfather. Would that be okay? I said, sure. I said, nobody told her to do it. Her parents didn't say, go into the Hondo and do Oshoko. Just spontaneously, she wanted to do that. So I lit some incense, and even though she had been coming every Sunday, now this most sincere gasho from the heart, because she wanted to pay respect to her grandfather, to Buddha, and their hearts became one. Today we also recognize past members of BWA. We bow our heads to past BWA members who worked so hard for the BWA and the temple. Oh my gosh, BWA worked so hard over the years of my ministry. Oh, sometimes I can't keep up with them. Ladies that are 90 years old that work all day long in the hot kitchen or cooking outside. They work so hard. And they're such supporters of the temple and the Dharma. Well, maybe many of the BWA members that we're fondly calling today, maybe they were your mothers or your grandmothers. And with that in mind, I would like to share a favorite poem of mine by the late Reverend Haya Akigarasu, who was a Shin Buddhist minister of Japan of the Higashi Buddhist tradition. And he was the teacher of Reverend Gyobei Kumose, whom I studied under. Reverend Akigarasu composed this poem when his mother passed away. I should explain that he lost his father at a young age, so he was raised primarily by his mother. So when his mother passed away, he took it very hard, but composed this most beautiful poem. It goes as follows. The poem is simply titled My Mother by Reverend Haya Akigarasu. Though I may try for the rest of my life to praise my mother's virtue, I haven't enough time to express them all. No one except my mother loved me absolutely, and no one except myself loved my mother in the same way. Like a blind person, my mother loved me blindly. My mother, my dear mother. My mother's virtue was simply this, to love her husband and her child more than anything else. Though there are billions of people and billions of mothers, my own mother is undoubtedly the best. One day I asked my mother, what would you do if I gave you $1 million? She replied, I would give it right back to you. After my mother passed away, I searched and searched to find her. And finally I found her. I found her in my own being. Only my mother trusted me completely, beyond judgments of good and bad. How I long for her. I have tasted delicious foods from around the world, but for me, the only food truly delicious are the meals my mother prepared for me. Let my life shine out, for it was nurtured with the blood and tears of my mother as its nourishment even though there are many other children who love their mothers as much as I love mine, there can be no other mothers who love their children as much as my mother loves me. Such a beautiful poem by Reverend Akagarasu, translated by the late Reverend Kyoko Saito of the Higashi Buddhadharma in Los Angeles. It's so true what Reverend Akagarasu says, don't you think? I mean, we could eat at fancy restaurants, Roy's, really fancy restaurants, but when you think of it, the most delicious meals we've ever had, weren't they are the home-cooked meals by our mothers. I mean, my mother could just make fried bologna in a pot of rice, and that was delicious for me, but it was home-cooked meal. And now, I do most of the cooking in our family, so I hope someday my children will read this poem and they'll think to themselves, I have tasted delicious foods from around the world, but for me, the only food truly delicious are the meals my father But my wife is a good cook, so maybe they won't think of my food like this. The other part of this poem that I want to point out, especially for our memorial today, is, after Reverend Akagarasu lost his mother, he deeply missed her. When we lose our loved ones, we miss their physical presence. We can't touch them anymore. We can't talk with them anymore. We can't laugh with them, share a meal together. And we deeply miss their physical presence. And he expresses this by saying, after my mother passed away, I searched and searched to find her. He deeply missed her physical presence. But then he writes, but finally I found her. I found her in my own being. I found her in my own being. Meaning, he realized that the real essence, the real heart of his mother, was there deep inside of him, all along, and will always be there. For those of you who today are fondly remembering your mothers who were BWA members, I hope that you too find the true essence, the heart of your mother, deep within your own being, as is the case for all of us. For all of us. There, even deeper, is the heart and essence of the Buddha. Great wisdom and great compassion. So, how can we vow from the heart? As Lady Takeko Kujo writes, we vow from the heart when we are humble. To be humble is at the same time to awaken to our ignorance, our arrogance, our ego. We can't strive to become humble. It's not, being humble is not something you can work at. You can't think, well, I think I can be more humble. I'm really going to practice it. I'm really going to work at it. And you think, hey, yeah, I'm getting better. I think I'm pretty humble now. You're getting further away. See? So we are humble. We are humble rather than becoming humble. And we are humble when we are awakened to our arrogance. So I'm going to skip this poem. I think maybe the service is not long enough, but it is a wonderful illustration of becoming humble. So Shin Buddhism is a life of humility. Shinran Shonin was a truly humble person. And a truly humble person realizes their arrogance. And a truly selfless person realizes their self-centeredness. And that's the great contribution of Shin Buddhism, I think, to all of the world's religion and to the world. Different from other Buddhist traditions, great Zen masters, they talk about their enlightenment experience, how they attained Satori, when they attained Satori. I think Shinran Shonin is too humble of a guy to even talk about something like that. I think he might say, how could you talk about your enlightenment experience without there being a little tinge of ego there? Like, well, I should say this, but last night about 7 o'clock, I got enlightened. You talk about it, you're showing off your ego self, aren't you? So if being enlightened means that you have gone beyond the self, beyond the ego self, then someone who says they're enlightened is the furthest thing from it. And the person who says, I am so arrogant and self-centered, maybe that person is quite close to enlightenment. A truly selfless person realizes their self-centeredness. So returning to this passage from Lady Takeko Kujo again, whatever the object of reverence, there is utter joy when one has the inspiration to kneel down before it and offer up one's entire being. That's what we do. That's what we do every Sunday. That's what we do in our everyday life. We bow down to the truth of the Dharma, to the world of immeasurable light and immeasurable life. That's symbolized by the statue of Thank you very much.
Is that on? Thank you, Harada Sensei, for your very moving message. And I think that even if your children don't remember you for your food, Reverend Smitty will, so be assured. Now we will, if you'll all stand, we will sing Ondok-san 2, which is found on page 128 of our service book. You may be seated. Now we will have closing meditation. Seiya, through the mystery of the nightly skies, the brilliantly lit stars shine to fill my heart with peace and joy. The many Buddhas, more than the sands that are found on the banks of the Ganges River, watching over us night and day, brings joy and peace to my heart. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. this brings us to the close of our service today. Thank you very much for attending. And I would also like to thank our special guest, Bishop Harada. Your words, you shared the Dharma, not just in the words, but you also shared the experience of the Dharma and the Nembutsu, which I think really touched our hearts. So thank you very much. Thank you for officiating, Reverend Smitty, and for co-officiating, Reverend Noriko. Congratulations to our 3 newly certified minister's assistants, Arturo, Sharon, and Yukari. Thank you to our organist, Ann Ong. Thank you to our wonderful AV team who sits behind the scenes very quietly, Ken and Brevin and Bill. And Bill is kind of behind the scenes. Thank you also to Sharon for sounding the concho today. Thank you, all of you, for supporting the Buddhist Temple of San Diego and for joining us this morning at our service. So, Naman Davits, Naman Davits, Naman Davits. Please feel free to come up and do incense offering. Excuse me? Oh, yeah, there's cake. I'd also like to invite you, the board of directors,